Hello there, Dragonfire here, and happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Alright, today I thought I would rank the Leprechaun series. These are a fun series of movies. These movies are so bad they're good. If you know what I'm talking about, movies that are so bad they're good. Stuff like Troll and Troll 2, and, some of the Room is another example, with Tommy Wiseau and stuff. Of course, Neil Breen movies, stuff like that. Um, this is this is a fantastic series of mainly horror comedy and just really fun. Uh, you know, Leprechaun is a wisecracking guy. He's similar to Chucky the Killer Doll from the Child's Play movies, or Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. He's like the slasher killer who is going to give you some comedic value to go along with horror movie, dark comedy, comedic horror. All right, let's get into my ranking. So there are currently 8 movies in the franchise, and this is a box set that has all 8 of them. In last place, I'm going to go with Leprechaun Origins. That's my number 8. Now, on some level, I can respect that they tried something different with this entry. This was the 7th entry in the franchise. And even though the name Leprechaun Origins sounds like it might be a prequel, it is definitely not a prequel. This is a movie essentially set in an alternate reality. You see the back cover there, the leprechaun on the back cover there. That's Leprechaun from Leprechaun Origins. Um, it's it's set definitely in an alternate universe from all the other Leprechaun movies. Here the Leprechaun creature is depicted as less less humanoid and more animalistic. So, um, I think what they were going for was that they were going to try and make the Leprechaun actually scary and make it more of a traditional horror movie rather than going with um, the Leprechaun as he's been presented in the other films, um, as more of a humanoid creature, and he tells jokes, one-liners as he kills people, stuff like that. Again, very similar. He has a big personality, very similar to, Charles Lee Ray or Chucky the Killer Doll from the Child's Play series, or Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street series. He's a killer with a personality, and he's big. He's not your, or he's not big, but he has a big personality. But yeah, he's not like a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers, who is this silent, silent, mask wearing, faceless kind of killer who just kills people for no apparent reason. He has Leprechaun has personality. He has uh he engages in the movies themselves, and um you know takes joy in what he does and so forth. Um but not in Leprechaun Origins. In Leprechaun Origins, they tried to make it more of like a creature feature, and uh, I think tried to make it actually scary, make it more of a traditional, straight up horror movie instead of a horror comedy. And I can appreciate that they tried that once with this franchise, but I think we can all admit that it was a failure. So, I mean, the good side of it is that they tried it and they gave it a shot, but the bad side of it is that it just didn't work. But yeah, this is definitely a totally different uh, version of a leprechaun type creature who kills people. This leprechaun is, like I said, more animalistic, less humanoid. Um, he does the movie does indicate that he has some humanoid type like characteristics, but definitely not not fully evolved or fully like um, just like a short human with some, in the other movies, the leprechaun is just a short human that looks funny. In this movie, it's definitely more a creature. It's more like a feral animal from the woods. Um, and I can appreciate that they tried it. They also, for this movie, they used um, WWE wrestler Hornswoggle to play the leprechaun. But honestly, he does so little in the film as far as like he gets very little screen time. They hardly ever show him. A lot of times he's off screen coming after the people in the movie, or it's shown from his point of view, a POV shot from the leprechaun point of view or whatever. So they don't show him very much. So honestly, and he doesn't have much of a personality. He just goes after and tries to kill people. So it could have been played by anybody. They didn't need to get an established person who people would know from WWE, you know, to play this part. It could have been any short person could have played this part. In fact, the design of the leprechaun is so weird and everything that it could have been a puppet. He doesn't have a single line of dialogue in the entire movie. It could have just been a puppet being controlled by puppeteer puppeteers rather than a man in a suit. So, um, yeah, I like Hornswoggle. Obviously, I'm in the professional wrestling business myself, and Hornswoggle was in WWE for like 10 years. Obviously, I never made it to the big time. I never made it all the way to WWE in my career, but like just being a professional wrestler myself, I was excited about Hornswoggle playing the part, but he doesn't do anything. He never speaks a line of dialogue, and like I said, this design could have easily been any short person in a suit even a puppet and puppeteer. And I don't know how much CGI they use for this creature or puppetry they use for this creature, but you really can't even tell that Hornswoggle was playing the Leprechaun in Leprechaun Origins. So um, it is also the only movie to take place in Ireland. I thought that was noteworthy. So a couple of positives, but I think ultimately it's like you want to try something different. You want to try uh, making the leprechaun scary. You want to try making it more animalistic. You want to bring it back to its horror roots or whatever. Um, so I kind of get it. I kind of get that they were trying to go in a different direction, but at the end of the day, it just didn't work. So that's Leprechaun Origins is coming in last place for me. All right, number 7. I'm gonna put now these movies, these top 7, the other 7 Leprechaun movies besides Leprechaun Origins, for me are almost interchangeable. I mean, it's really just throw one of these on. You don't have to watch them in order. Just watch one here or one there. Um, and they're fun so bad they're good movies. Okay. Um, but my number seven is Back to the Hood, which was movie, the sixth movie in the franchise, Back to the Hood. I think ultimately the reason why I put this one at number seven is because I just feel like it's a somewhat inferior version of the first Leprechaun in the Hood. Back to the Hood um, is just takes some of the same concepts and places him in that particular setting, but it doesn't nearly have as strong as characters. They're really good characters in the first in the first Leprechaun in the Hood, but Leprechaun Back to the Hood doesn't have really good characters. By the way, I think I should clarify that basically the only way to make sense of these movies as far as fitting them in to any sort of continuity besides Leprechaun Origins, which you could consider a remake, taking the kind of sort of concept of the Leprechaun movies as the Leprechaun who kills people and then doing something completely different with that concept. That's what Leprechaun Origins is, and that's why I would consider it more of a remake or reimagining than anything else. Um, the rest of these movies, the best way to make sense of them is that there are whole species of beings called leprechauns, um, but they're but each leprechaun you see in each of the other seven movies are except for with the exception of one. I'll get back to that, but they're different individuals. So leprechaun is the species, and you have different individuals within that species, even if they're being played by the same actor, or if the makeup job looks exactly the same or almost exactly the same. Uh, there are different. The species is the leprechaun, and then you have different individual leprechauns in that species, and that gets rid of like discrepancies on how old the leprechaun is, stuff like that, where it changes from film to film, or when the leprechaun takes off his hat, like how much hair does he have under, is he bald, does he have hair, whatever. Um, like, so different kind of discrepancies with the leprechauns, you can kind of make up by saying these are different individuals, um, but all the same species. So, um, let's see. So yeah, Back to the Hood is my number seven. I don't have much to say about it. It's fun in its own right, seeing Leprechaun in the hood. Um, just having fun with that concept. But I just think that the first Leprechaun in the Hood did it better than Leprechaun Back to the Hood. So in my mind, Back to the Hood is the inferior version of those two films. Um, Number six, I'm gonna put Leprechaun 2. This is the one where he's in Hollywood. They don't really do much with the concept of him being in Hollywood. They do a little bit with it, like the main character is a tour guide, so he guides people around Hollywood for the tourist stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. But beyond that, I'm not sure that they do that much with it. So it is what it is. That is my number six is Leprechaun in Hollywood or Leprechaun 2. Um, and again, all these movies are so bad that they're good. Um, my number five is going to be Leprechaun 3, which is basically I call Leprechaun in Las Vegas. I think it was a neat idea. It's a good setting to have him in. Um, maybe if it were executed a little bit better, it might be my favorite. But there's just some story directions that I don't like, but it's still a fun movie. Um, my number four is going to actually be Leprechaun 4. That's Leprechaun in Space. As crazy as that sounds, well, yeah, it is. In this movie, they never actually refer to the leprechaun as a leprechaun, but rather as an alien creature from another planet. That could be congruent with the rest of the movies. Maybe all of the leprechauns are actually um, beings from other planets um, who came to Earth a long time ago. And there's only a few of them. That's why you hardly ever see leprechauns, right? But when they do come around, they do this stuff and they have these magical powers or whatever. I mean, you can just say that they're an alien species, and that's the origin of the leprechauns, and that's um, they all came from outer space. So some people think that the idea that the leprechaun is an alien contradicts the other movies, and I don't think it does at all. It's just maybe there's a group of leprechauns who have been stranded on Earth for centuries, and they all came in a spaceship or whatever. I mean, who knows? Um, but yeah, this is just a crazy entry in the franchise. They go all out with it. It's probably the most outrageous one, and in some ways that makes it better than some of the other ones because you just lean into the craziness, lean into how outlandish the concept and the ideas are, and it works in some ways. All right, for my number three, I'm gonna have Leprechaun One, the original, or as I call it sometimes, Leprechaun in the Middle of Nowhere. Yeah, that's my number three. I This original movie does set a good tone. It's famous for having Jennifer Aniston before she was famous and became, Rachel on Friends. Um, it's just another enjoyable, so bad it's good Leprechaun movie. All right, my number two is going to be Leprechaun in the Hood. Um, this has arguably the best human characters of the entire franchise that really get you to care about them. In fact, probably one of the things that may hold it back a little bit for me is it has a bit of a downer ending. I don't want to give away the ending, but you really care about these characters and you want them to succeed. So the way the movie ends is less satisfying in some way because normally I'd be okay with not necessarily have a happy ending, but sometimes you get too attached to these characters. It's really good writing, really good stuff. I really like Leprechaun in the Hood, but the um the ending does kind of tank it for me a little bit. The ending of the movie proper, and then in the closed credit scene, it has the Leprechaun rapping. Fantastic stuff. I really do love Leprechaun in the Hood. But I'm going to choose for my number one Leprechaun Returns. I know this is weird ranking because Warwick Davis played Leprechaun in the first six movies. And in Leprechaun Returns, he's replaced by a different actor. And I really love Warwick Davis. He's such a great actor and does these movies so well. And the guy that plays him in Leprechaun Returns, I don't think is quite as good. He's almost as good, but just not quite. Warwick Davis, the OG, is the best Leprechaun as a Leprechaun individual, but I just think that Leprechaun Returns is the better overall movie. Uh, they bring back the Leprechaun from the first movie. He's been where we left him off in the first movie is basically he was kind of buried and left for dead. In this movie, they bring him back. um, the individual leprechaun resurrected by leprechaun magic or whatever, I don't know. But this is the same individual from the first movie. That's why I say they're different individual leprechauns in each movie. And I just really like what they do with this one. Yeah, Leprechaun Returns is worth a watch. So if you fell off in the series somewhere and have only seen, part one or the first two or the first three or whatever, I definitely recommend, uh, watching Leprechaun in the Hood and Leprechaun Returns. Those two, at least for sure. Um, give Leprechaun in Space a try as well if you haven't seen it yet. But um, just kind of go into the mindset, not serious, like looking for a horror movie, like go in the mindset of just trying to have fun. And I think it'll serve you well. Anyway, uh, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. All right, Dragonfire out.